Coming up on today's Jags Now, we're going to be talking about a player that the Jacksonville Jaguars need to re-sign and bring back for the 2026 NFL season. We'll tell you who it is and break down why I think the Jaguars should re-sign this player this upcoming offseason. But before we get into it, I want to hear from you guys. Who is your favorite Jacksonville Jaguars player of all time? If I had to give one personally, I know it's kind of a basic answer, but I'm going to go with Maurice Jones-Drew, the absolute unit, former first-team All-Pro, one of the best players of his generation, and doing it for the short kings like myself out here. So without any further ado, let's get into today's show. You're watching Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. I am your host, Cullen Brown, and on today's show, we are going to be discussing why the Jaguars need to re-sign Montaric, a.k.a. Buster Brown, for 2026. And look, Buster Brown, former 7th-round pick out of the University of Arkansas, really got his chance to shine over the last two-ish seasons, but this past season is where he really stepped out onto the main stage for Jacksonville, and that's my number one reason, right, that you would bring a guy like Buster Brown back is he did ball out, right? I mean, you have to acknowledge that whenever you're coming up with free agency decisions. And for Brown, who was originally drafted back in 2022, he, like I said, got his final opportunity this season, really stepped out in 15 games played, had 51 tackles, 12 passes defended, 2 interceptions, and really was a staple whenever the Jaguars were kind of going through their multiple issues at cornerback this season. Obviously, they had the Travis Hunter injury. Greg Newsome, originally it was Tyson Campbell, then they made the trade for Greg Newsome, who then, didn't really perform up to snuff. So Montaric Brown was really asked to kind of shoulder the weight, and he goes even deeper when you look at his coverage stats. Like, when you're trusted to be an outside corner in the NFL, especially as a 7th-round pick, you're going to have some teams go after you and target you. And for Montaric Brown, he really held up well. 34 receptions allowed on 63 targets. He had 360 yards allowed, only 3 touchdowns given up on the year, a long 30-yard reception. For a guy that's not necessarily known as a burner per se, I think it's pretty good if you're Montaric Brown. And listen, he was one of 2 cornerbacks for the Jaguars who really stepped up this past season. Him and Jarrian Jones, I think, were huge difference makers for Anthony Campanelli's defense this past season. Like I mentioned, Travis Hunter, who really had more of a role on the offensive side of the ball, he goes down with an injury. Jourdan Lewis, who was your previous free agent acquisition, who was going to be that starting nickel corner, that's where Jarrian Jones kind of came in. He, goes down with a foot injury. He misses the season. And then Montaric Brown, who had to step up, again, with Travis Hunter's absence, Greg Newsome kind of playing an inconsistent up-and-down role after the trade. I think Montaric Brown and Jarrian Jones were really 2 of your more consistent pieces in the secondary, and it was a credit to them because the Jaguars desperately needed somebody to step up in their absences, and Montaric Brown did the job. So I think that if the Jaguars need to have more consistency, they have to keep players who performed well, did their job, and ultimately are going to contribute to future, now that you're bringing Anthony Campanelli back, players that thrived in his system. So I think Montaric Brown fits that qualification. But another reason that I think Brown should be brought back for this 2026 NFL season is, simply put, the Jaguars have limited options when it comes to the outside cornerback spot. You take a look at the Jaguars cornerbacks that are currently under contract for 2026. Obviously, you have Travis Hunter, who I think primarily will play outside corner for this team. He will obviously still get some outside snaps. Is there possibly concern, knock on wood, that, we get a repeat of last season? Hopefully not, but that's what the Jaguars are ultimately deciding to do. Jourdan Lewis, who, again, suffered that foot injury last season, I think that, he'll slide right back in as your starting nickel, as he was kind of previously, playing for Jacksonville. Jarrian Jones, capable reserve that can come in a pinch, but he's going to be kind of more of a backup guy. Caleb Ransaw, who we'll talk about more here in a second, and then Lovely, who the Jaguars, they were one of 15 players that they signed to reserves and future contracts. So you're looking at, all those guys. Obviously, you have Christian Braswell as well, who's kind of that tweener, can play outside, can also play in the slot, but he's really not a guy that I'm banking on in terms of like an outside corner option. So you're limited there. And I know people have kind of talked about Caleb Ransaw, who former 3rd-round pick out of Tulane. I think he's going to be a factor for the Jaguars this upcoming season, but people were sitting there saying, because we did our mock draft video recently, that, could Ransaw be a potential option if the Jaguars decide to move on from Montaric Brown? And while I do think he's a talented player, during his collegiate days, when he was at Troy for 3 seasons from 2021 to 2023, and then for the 2024 season at Tulane, he primarily actually played as a slot corner. He also did play a little bit outside, play in the box, even had a few snaps at free safety. So he's very capable at playing different spots in the secondary in Anthony Campanelli's defense. But the fact that he did not play a single snap this past offseason with that foot injury, and combined with the fact that he's not, in my eyes, maybe the Jaguars see it differently, not a true outside corner, at least not yet in the NFL, to me gives me pause and gives me a really not confident feeling with him at outside corner, just because, listen, he could go out there and, be an outside guy for the Jaguars, but we haven't seen it yet, so you can't necessarily bank on him just being that guy and sliding in for Montaric Brown, who played at a really high level last year, plain and simple. So I think that if the Jaguars were to move on from Montaric Brown, he just can't simply be the only answer, him and Braswell at that outside cornerback spot opposite of Travis Hunter. But I want to get y'all's opinion down below. What's your confidence level in this cornerback room without Buster Brown? Say they move on from him, which, again, that's not something that I would do personally, but if you had to rate the cornerback room, scale it 0 to 100, 0 being it's the worst cornerback room I've ever seen, 100 being this is goated, this is one of the best rooms, maybe could lead the NFL in terms of interceptions, in for 2026. You guys let me know down in the comments section. And then my third and final reason to bring back Buster Brown is he's earned respect in the building. Which, again, that's kind of thrown around tongue-in-cheek. Like, you're never really going to hear guys call out unless it's getting really bad in terms of, hey, this guy's really not well-liked or whatever. But I think Montaric Brown has really earned the respect of his teammates, the coaching staff, and general manager James Gladstone, who, back at that end-of-season press conference, had really nice things to say about Montaric Buster Brown. So I'm going to read it here for you, and this third kind of part of it is really where I want to get to. But for James Gladstone, he said the following. Yeah, it's another one that's in alignment with Parker Washington, obviously talking about Buster Brown. What you saw in the offseason program and in training camp was authentic. It was real. He was getting his hand on the ball endlessly. His skill set aligned with the scheme in a true form. And I think that probably from last season to this season was something that many could understand on their own. But he's very comfortable operating in it. He's very effective in it. I think that certainly gives us the confidence. His mode of operation is one of trust. I think that the coaching staff certainly a willingness to give it on an attempt, even if walking into the season or looking outward you may not have identified Buster as being starting cornerback or not, and certainly proud. Just like with Devin Lloyd, obviously, to see his output to climb over the course of the season and make a real dent in our result, talking about Brown. And, Gladstone obviously said very high praise there. I think he fits. You can see the confidence rising. You saw the progression over the season, which I completely agree with. And Liam Cohen also added, and this was before even last season, during training camp, that, Buster Brown, he's got really strong football intelligence, really high IQ. And that's something that, you'll talk to NFL coaches a lot, and one thing that they all can agree on. I mean, obviously you'll have different schemes, different players that fit in different situations, but you can never have too many strong football intelligence, a.k.a. high IQ players. And I think Buster Brown is one of that. I mean, he's not the fastest guy. He's not the most physically gifted guy as a cornerback, but he simply wins with technique, he wins with physicality, and he wins with his competitiveness. And look, the Jaguars, they're set to make some tough decisions this offseason when it comes to free agency, because even though the NFL cap or salary cap did get expanded today, which is great news for the Jaguars, we'll probably talk about in a future video, you've got 3 major free agents that you're going to have to make decisions on in Montaric Brown, in Devin Lloyd, and in Travis Etienne. And in my personal opinion, I would have Montaric Brown be the priority. Devin Lloyd, listen, second-team All-Pro. We'll probably do a more deeper dive video on Devin Lloyd in a future video. He's great, but you have linebacker depth that can at least be, adequate if you were to lose Devin Lloyd in free agency. Travis Etienne balled out, had his best season under Liam Cohen, and I would love to see him get another crack with this head coach, this coaching staff. But Bashal Tootin is a rock star. I think he's going to be really effective for the Jaguars this season. And LaQuinn Allen is a really sneaky good pick in the 7th round. Whereas with Montaric Brown, again, just kind of, going through, they don't have a lot of options at outside corner without Montaric Brown. So the fact that he balled out, the fact that they have limited options, the fact that he's earned the respect in the building, to me, is all the more reason that you bring a guy like Buster Brown back in this building. I think he's earned it. He's probably, given Spotrac's contract projection, going to command somewhere between $8 to $12 million per year. I'd be fine paying that. I think he's earned it. I think he's going to continue to progress in Anthony Campanelli's defense, who's returning back, which he's a guy that's a physical, really great zone corner, and I think the sky's the limit for him in this defense. I think he deserves to get paid, and I hope the Jaguars agree with me in terms of re-signing him. But I want to turn it over to you guys. Be James Gladstone for me. Should the Jaguars re-sign Montaric Brown? Type an R if you want them to re-sign him, or type W. You're like, nah, we're going to walk. We're going to let Montaric Brown walk. We got other issues. We got other concerns. Let me know down in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the end of today's video. If you liked what you saw, we did something right, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more Jaguars news and rumors videos. And as always, Jaguars fans, Duval! We'll see you next time.